touch the sky at the same time. Rishikesh, beautiful. And of course, Parmarth. That is the destination. And again, I wish I was there, but not being there right now, I'll have to do it in my mind and send you my mind information wherever you are right now in this virtual international yoga experience. So, yes, Bruce Lipton, author of the best-selling book, The Biology of Belief, and a wonderful story to tell you about yoga, because yoga is uniting, and especially so in uniting body and mind. And you go, so, oh, mind and body, that's so cool. We talked about that for all the years, and I'm going to go tell you something very important, that the life that you're experiencing is the creation of your mind. That as you change your mind and understand the nature of your mind and your programming, you can understand the nature and character of your life. And yoga is an opportunity to unite that mind and body back together again, and then give charge of the mind to the experiences that you have. I say, well, yes, consciousness is creating all this. And I go, well, this is not necessarily a new idea. In fact, way back in the beginning of physics in 1927, there was an opportunity to experience the world. And this opportunity came about through quantum physics. And the nature of quantum physics is very critical, and that is this. Quantum physics is the most valid science on this planet. There is no science more truth in it or has been affirmed more than quantum physics. So if you're going to have an argument with a science, the last one we can argue with today is quantum physics. I say, so why? What's so relevant about quantum physics? Well, physics means mechanisms. The mechanisms, that's why we talk about Newtonian mechanisms, Newtonian physics, quantum mechanics, quantum physics. And all of a sudden we start to say, okay, there's mechanism. I say, yeah, but it's a mechanism of how the universe works. And it's very interesting because in 1927, when quantum physics was introduced to the world, the founding fathers of quantum physics, such as Max Planck here, he writes this is from 1927, all matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. The mind is the matrix of all matter. Wow. I say, what does that mean? Mind is a matrix. The mind is what is creating matter. You go, what do you mean? How can it create matter? Well, let's go back to another couple of physicists, okay? Sir James Jeans writes, the stream of knowledge is heading toward a new non-mechanical reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather hail it as the creator and the governor of the realm of matter. So from the very beginning, quantum physics recognized the most important fact, that consciousness from the mind is manifesting our life experiences. Well, mind and creator come together in this understanding, and yet a lot of people have problem with this belief. You know what's interesting? Another quote from the very same time from Arthur Eddington is the following. He says, it is difficult for the matter-of-fact physicist to accept the view that the substratum of everything is of mental character. So I say, okay, the most accurate science on this planet gives us the most important premise to start with, and that is mind is creating our life experiences. Well, you go, well, yeah, but that was like from 1927. That's 100 years ago. I go, in a more recent article, and this is in the journal Nature, the most prestigious scientific journal on this planet. So here's an article from a quantum physicist at Johns Hopkins University, and the article is entitled The Mental Universe. Even just the opening line in the subtitle, the only reality is mind. But instead of going through the whole article, I just want to give you the last sentence, and here it is. The universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. Live and enjoy. Now, we can say that, and our conscious mind can say, yeah, okay, I'll memorize that. And then if Bruce gives me a quiz, I'm going to have that answer correct. I go, yeah, you can put this in your mind, but I have to tell you something. It's more than just a concept. It is an understanding of the universe in which we live. And I say, so why is it relevant? I say, well, then we have to change our understanding of how we thought the universe ran, because that's where limitations came into our creative ability. So let me emphasize again before we go on. Nature, the most prestigious scientific journal on the planet, the article, The Mental Universe by Richard Conn Henry, and the relevance is just in the last sentence. The universe is immaterial, it's mental and spiritual. And if you understand that, then you start to recognize a very important fact of quantum physics, and that is consciousness is creating our life experience. And then I go, well, if consciousness is creating your reality, then how's that working out for you? And I go, why is that relevant? So I say, do you struggle? Do you have to work hard and sweat over things to make things happen when your mind is actually creating the world? I go, well, you will if the picture in your mind is not supporting you. And all of a sudden I say, well, what do you mean? I say, the consciousness that we are manifesting is turning into our reality. And the significance is then, well, how's this particular thing working out for us? And the point about all that is now there's an opportunity to understand, how does consciousness influence this whole damn thing? Because it sounds so new agey. And I go, no, it's not new agey, it's hard science. And from a biological point of view, let me try to give you an explanation of how consciousness creates this reality. And more importantly, how come you really may not be manifesting the reality you want every day in your life? If we're creating it, why aren't we creating heaven on earth every day? Well, there's an insight to this story. And to begin with, let's start with this. Over 50 years ago, I was culturing stem cells. So let's back up and say, what the heck is a stem cell? And then we back up further and I say, a human body is not a simple unity. A human body is comprised of 50 trillion cells. It's a community of 50 trillion cells. And guess what? Basically, the cells have all the same functions that we have: respiration, digestion, excretion, movement, reproduction, consciousness, and dealing with the world. They have a nervous system. I go, so why is it relevant? I say, well, cells are like miniature people. So that inside your body, you have a civilization of 50 trillion miniature individuals sharing a community. And I say, but every day we lose hundreds of billions of these cells. They just die, age, damage, whatever it may be. Hundreds of billions of cells die every day. That's natural life. And then I go, so what? I go, well, how long can you live if that many cells are dying every day? And the answer is, but there are cells in there called stem cells. I go, so what? I go, stem cells are embryonic cells. And as a consequence, when cells die, stem cells are the reserve to make new populations of any cells that died. So while you might lose hundreds of billions of cells every day for whatever reason, aging, death, damage, guess what? You're making hundreds of billions of new cells every day because you have stem cells. They're multi-potential embryonic cells in your body. And if you're listening and watching and understanding what I'm talking about, then by definition, you're already loaded with stem cells. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Okay, so now what's the fact? Well, a stem cell is an embryonic cell. And I go, yeah, so what? And I go, but when I grow cells, I can isolate a single stem cell and put it in a culture dish all by itself. But it divides every 10 or 12 hours. So first there's one, and there's two, and there's 4, 8, 16, 32. After a week, 30,000 cells in the petri dish. But guess what? They're all genetically identical cells because they all came from one parent cell. So I have 30,000 genetically identical cells. But now here comes where the big insight of the world that we're talking about is going to come in right here. And it goes like this. I grow cells in a solution and an environment called culture medium. And I go, yeah, what is culture medium? I go, the laboratory version of blood. So if I grow human cells, I look at what human blood is made out of and then try to make a laboratory synthetic version of that. And we call it culture medium. Well, since I'm creating the lab, I can vary the concentrations of different things. So I make 3 different versions of culture medium. That's 3 different environments. But all the cells are going to be split into 3 dishes. And so every one of the dishes has genetically identical cells as the other dishes. So All the cells in the experiment are genetically identical, but I subdivide them into 3 dishes, and in each dish, I feed them a different environment, a different culture medium combination. So in one dish, in environment A, the cells form muscle. In a different culture medium, a different environment, in dish B, the cells form bone. And yet in dish C, again, with a different culture medium environment, the cells form fat. Now, when I was doing this, I have to say, at the same time, I was teaching students the idea that genes control life, that genes turn on and off and then control the expression of life. And, but when I went in the lab and did these experiments, and they were repeatable over and over and over again, so it wasn't an accident, it led to a, oh my God. And the oh my God was this: the cells were genetically identical. The fate of the cells was not based on the genes within the cells. It was based on the environment in which the cells found themselves. I go, oh my God, it was the environment that was manipulating the fate of the cells. And I was like, this is completely different than what I was teaching. Genes turn on and off and then determine what's going to happen. I go, no, it's the environment that does that. And I say, so why is that relevant? I say, well, how does it work? I go, signals come in from the medium. Some of the signals that I add, chemical signals, attach to the membrane or skin of the cell. And then the skin or membrane translates that signal by sending a signal inside that activates the behavior of the cells. And I go, oh. And then I go, but some of the signals, when I need a different protein to make a different behavior, some of those signals go into the nucleus where they activate the genes. The whole process of how signals are controlling behavior in genetics is under one science called signal transduction, which just means following a signal from its origin to its destination in the cell and the consequences of what happens in the cell, signal transduction. A subdivision of signal transduction is when that signal specifically goes into the nucleus, because in the nucleus, that signal activates specific genes based on which signal is coming in. So this is a new science called epigenetics. And the relevance about this is very important, because basically what it is saying is this: the old story we used to tell was called genetic determinism. Genes determine the character of your life. And I go, so why is that relevant? I goes, well, as far as we know, you didn't pick the genes. If you don't like the character, you can't change the genes. And then we tell you that genes turn on and off by themselves. And I say, what is the consequence of that thinking? And I go, you are left with one belief, that you are a victim of your heredity. Whatever is traveling through your family is genetic, and you're going to get genes, and then you're going to express those same traits. Cancer running in family, oh, it's a cancer gene, and I might get that. I might get the cancer. I'm a victim. I don't control the cells. They turn on and off by themselves. And as victims, we see ourselves powerless in controlling our health. And I go, so why is it relevant? I go, well, when you feel you are powerless, you give up your power to someone you presume has more power, and then you can follow them. So if I am a victim, I look for a rescuer to help me. And I go, well, when we deal with issues of our biology and our health and our behavior, well, the tendency especially is when we grew up with conventional medicine in our family. So as an infant, when someone was sick in your family, they went to the doctor. A learning occurs during that childhood period that says, when it comes to your health, you don't know and have any idea of how to control that, but the doctor does. And there's a programming that we'll talk about that occurs that all of a sudden says, when it comes to health, you will buy the word of the doctor over your own consciousness, because they're the professional and you're not. And I say, oh, well, that's the consequence of victim. Now I say, but the new science we just mentioned here called epigenetics, environment controlling the genes, changes the entire story for a very simple reason. Genes do not control anything. Genes are blueprints to make the proteins. The proteins are the mechanical building blocks of the body that, when they move, create our behavior. And I go, so used to say this character, due to these proteins, is under genetic control, controlled by genes. And I go, yeah, but the new science now is something different. It's called epigenetics, that this character is under epigenetic control. And I go, sounds similar. What's the difference? Epi means above. So for example, we call skin epidermis. I go, why? Because just underneath the top layer of the skin, just underneath there is a layer called the dermis. And epi means above. So skin is epi, above dermis. That's that. And I go, yeah, but what is epigenetics? And I go, this character is under epigenetic control, translates as control epi, above the genes. What? The control is not in the genes? Genes don't turn on and off? And I go, no, that was an idea that we were programmed with, but genes don't control their own activity. Genes are controlled by environmental signals. Epigenetics, environment controlling genetics. I go, so why is it relevant? Old story, genetics, victim. Why? Genes control, genes turn on and off. I'm just receiver of genes and I didn't pick them. Boom, victim. Now we say, wait, the new science recognizes that consciousness is influencing this in some way. And I say, why? Because basically what's above genetics is going to be consciousness. I go, but that's the same story physics is. I go, ha, not a coincidence, because there's a biology that complements the physics, environment controlling your biology, behavior, and health, and your genetics. I go, why is it relevant? Well, if environment is controlling your biology, you're the one that can adjust, change, or keep the environment or adjust it in any way necessary. And I say, why is that relevant? Because if I can change and adjust the environment and the environment controls itself and I control the environment, then I'm not a victim. I'm a master. I go, yes, you've been a master, but you have a problem. You have a belief that has disempowered you, that you are controlled by your genetics. This is a totally false story. And I go, well, how do we connect this? And I say, well, I'm growing cells in a petri dish. And I say a culture medium that I add to that petri dish to grow the cells in is the equivalent of blood. And then I told you very importantly, you look at yourself as a single entity. And I go, no, you're not a single entity. You are a community of cells. Under your skin, there are 50 trillion cells. You are a skin-covered petri dish. Ha! Why is it relevant? Because the cells in your petri dish are growing in which environment? The blood, the original culture medium. I go, so why is it relevant? I say, it doesn't make a difference if the cell is in a plastic dish or a skin-covered dish for a very simple reason. It's the culture medium. In the plastic dish is the synthetic version of blood called culture medium. In the body is the original culture medium, blood. So the chemistry of your blood is influencing the expression of your cells in your skin-covered petri dish. I go, wow. I say, well, how does this work? Well, culture medium is blood. And I go, yeah, but what controls blood? And I go, well, nutrition is in blood. And I leave very quickly with this point, but could go on. We must start learning to eat better food because the food in industrial farming is compromised. The fertilizers, toxins, and things put on it, it's not natural anymore. And it's lost a lot of its real mineral elements to it. So the idea is this. For health, you are making culture medium. When I make culture medium, I don't buy my ingredients at Kmart or a thrift store. I buy it at the best place possible. Because if I compromise the ingredients in the culture medium, I can observe when I feed the cells the compromised medium, they get sick right away. So I say nutrition is important because that's what's the foundation of your culture medium. Organic, natural, healthy food is really a very important start to manifesting culture medium that will support your health and vitality. But in blood, there's more. There's cultural cellular signals. Hormones, growth factors, neuropeptides, emotional chemicals. These don't provide nutrition. They provide information to who? The cells. I go, oh, so why is this relevant? And I go, how does this thing work? And I go, the environment, whether it's outside of our body or inside the body, the combination or what's going on in that environment is picked up by the nervous system, the brain, which is perception. Is it cold out? Is it warm out? Do I have enough salt in my system or do I need to add more salt in my system? This would be the brain reading the environment. Once the brain has a perception of what's going on, it can adjust the biology by sending signals through the nervous system. And many of these signals are then converted into the chemistry that is into the blood. So the brain is making culture medium based on what? Its perceptions. So all of a sudden I say, oh my God, then it's the environment that the brain is picking up, the perception of the environment that controls behavior and genes. I go, absolutely right. It's the environment that's influencing us, not the genes. I go, yeah, but I left something out. I go, what? Well, what I left out was this. In addition to there's a brain, there's a mind. I goes, why is the mind so important? Because that's interpretation of the perception. Two people can have the exact perception, same perception, and one goes, ah, and the other goes, ah. They're both reading the same perception, but they have different interpretations of that experience. I go, so why is it relevant? Well, then all of a sudden it turns out it's not always the direct environment that is controlling your cells for a very simple reason. The perception comes into the brain, the mind, in interpreting those perceptions, is what sends a signal back to the brain with its interpretation. And then the brain sends chemistry via the nervous system to the cells based on not just the perception, but the interpretation. And all of a sudden it says, well, some of our interpretations of the world are absolutely correct, and some of our interpretations of the world not very correct. And I go, whether they're correct or incorrect, the cells don't know that. All they get is the information coming from the interpretation. So then basically I said, then what controls your behavior and your genetics? Not really the environment as much as our interpretation and perception of that environment. Change your interpretation, change your perception, you're going to change the response of the biology to what's going on in the environment. So I go, well, how does it work? I said, well, there's a mind, and the mind is the critical part of understanding how this works. I go, well, let me show you how simple it is. Here's a brain, your brain, my brain, and in one fist of the brain is a flask containing growth medium, blood. The other, the brain is feeding the cells the culture medium that it just made. And I go, so why is it relevant? I say, well, what is the interpretation of your world as you see it? So let's say your eyes are closed and when you open them, you see someone you love. And I go, oh, interpretation. I see love. I say, what is the brain going to do? Translate love into chemistry that goes into the culture medium, blood, that then goes to the cells. So the cells know we're in love. I say, how do cells know we're in love? I say, well, one of the chemicals released in love by the brain, dopamine, pleasure. So there's pleasure in the body when you fall in love. Oxytocin is released by that brain in love. And I say relevance, it bonds you to the source of that love so you can keep that love coming in. Vasopressin, another wonderful chemical, is released from the brain into the blood in a vision of love. And vasopressin makes you more attractive to keep your partner more attentive. And also, not least important, is growth hormone, which does exactly what it says. It supports growth and vitality. So when you're in love, the brain releases growth hormone into the culture medium, which feeds the 50 trillion cells in your skin-covered dish, and there's vitality, health, and happiness in that cellular community. But in contrast, if your eyes are closed and then you open them and you see something that scares you and you're in fear, you don't release love chemicals. These completely different chemicals that complement fear. Stress hormones and factors that affect the immune system and shut it down and alter it. These are the chemicals that go in the blood, into the culture medium when you're in fear. And I go, there's two chemistries, love chemistry, for example, and fear chemistry. But there's thousands of chemistries. It's a big recipe book. Whatever you are perceiving in your world is translated into complementary chemistry. And so I say, all of a sudden, I say, then the picture in your mind is creating your world. I go, absolutely. I go, well, what about the pictures in my mind? I go, well, here's an important fact. The function of the mind, and this is important, is to create coherence between your beliefs and your reality. And I go, so why is this relevant? I go, well, first of all, what are your beliefs? Because the function of the mind is to manifest a chemistry to create a behavior. Chemistry creates behavior in genetics, and the mind will release the chemistry that will manifest whatever your beliefs are. And then you stop and go, Does it make a difference if it's a positive or negative belief? I go, nope. The mind will create a positive response to positive beliefs and manifest a negative response to negative beliefs. It's not a coincidence. And this old story is nothing new. 2,500 years ago, the Buddha said, what we think, we become. Now there's a physics, quantum physics about consciousness. Now there's a biology about consciousness. Yeah, the consciousness is translated into chemistry. The chemistry is a complement to the consciousness. Healthy consciousness, healthy body. Unhealthy consciousness, problems. And all of a sudden it says, wow, this is very powerful. Why? You're not a victim of your genetics. If anything, you're a victim of your consciousness. Yeah, but you control your consciousness. So there's greatest opportunity not to be a victim. I say, yeah, but how does it work? And I go, well, it's basically how you see the world is how it works. And I've been saying this for 30 years or more, but science is finally catching on. And here's an article from a researcher, Steve Cole, University of California, Los Angeles Medical School. And he was talking about the nature about how we're creating life in this article. And here's what he writes. To an extent that immunologists and psychologists rarely appreciate, it says that we are architects of our own experience. We are architects of our own experience. Yeah, we're creators. But the most important sentence is this one. Your subjective experience carries more power than your objective situation. I go, what does that mean? I go, subjective experience. What is subjective experience? Well, that's experience influenced by your personal feelings or opinions. I believe this, I believe that. That's subjective. And I say, so let's put in, instead of subjective experience, let's put belief in there. Your belief carries more power than your objective situation. I go, objective situation? What does that mean? I go, that is objective situation is the reality not influenced by your personal opinions and beliefs. It's the reality, so to speak. Oh, so let's just change that word from objective situation into reality and now read the sentence. Your belief carries more power than your reality. This is now front edge, leading edge science. We're moving in this direction. It's very important. So I go, wow, yes. Oh, let's go back to the quote by Richard Conn Henry. The universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. And I go, oh, it's mental. Absolutely. Your mind is manifesting a reality. And this is why it's so important to understand yoga and its influence in controlling and training the mind to give you power. So what is the mind? Well, I go, it's coming from the brain. And I say, well, what does it represent? I say, well, there's two aspects of mind. The latest part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, right behind your fore right here, is the seat of the conscious mind. The rest of the brain, about 90% of it, was here before conscious mind, and we refer to that as subconscious mind. Point, two minds, two different functions, and most importantly, two different ways of learning. And that's where the confusion comes from when we put them together and talk about the mind. I go, no, there's two minds, and you have to understand how they work. So I say, well, what is the conscious mind? Well, the conscious mind is the one connected to your personal identity, your source, your spirituality. You are an entity, so to speak, in the conscious mind. I said, what's the character of it? And I go, creative. That's what makes humans so much different than lower organisms. We can take a creative vision and manifest it. A caveman can sit on a rock and go, well, that thing's the moon. Wouldn't that be cool to get there? You'd need a rocket. And the other cavemen are going, what the hell's a rocket? And hey, what's the moon? But they had a vision of traveling. And then lo and behold, over time, technology evolved and an imagination, a creative source, manifested reality. So our conscious mind gives us opportunities to manifest different realities based on our creative character. And I say, well, what's it based on? I go, well, it represents your wishes, desires, and aspirations. What is it you want from your life? I ask you that question. The answer comes from the creative mind, seeing into the future, imagination that it can manifest. It's also the seat of positive thinking, conscious mind, positive thinking. A lot of people say that stuff's not really real. And I go, excuse me. The placebo effect, which is responsible for a minimum of 1/3 and up to 2/3 of all healing. The placebo effect is all due to what? Positive thinking that whatever therapy or drug is being offered, I see a positive outcome. I take that drug or therapy. I then end up getting cured and find out the drug was a sugar pill or the therapy was just a sham fake operation. And I go, well, then what healed you? And the answer obviously is this. It was the thought of healing. Very powerful. Okay, subconscious mind has a whole different story. It was here first, and I go, well, what's unique about it? And I go, it's a record playback mechanism. It can learn a behavior, and upon learning it, make a program out of it that you can push the button, and every time you push the button, you can play the program over and over and over and over again. So I go, wow, this is a really interesting mechanism. A lot of people say this is the subconscious where all the evil comes from. I go, no, subconscious is where programs come from. Some programs can be good and some programs can be bad. I'll give you an example of a good one. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2. Are you still walking? Well, thank God you got a subconscious mind. You know why? That's the mechanism recorded the process and knows how to do it. You can learn how to drive a car, and once you learn and drive for a while, guess what? You can drive the car without paying any attention to the details, such as what are going on in the gauges, looking in the mirrors, it's automatic, the road, watching, it's automatic. Why? You have thoughts. You could have a passenger in the car, talk to the passenger for a while, then look out the window and go, I haven't paid attention to the road the last 5 minutes. And I go, tell me what you were talking about. Oh yeah, we talked about this, this, and this. I go, that was conscious mind being directed. I say, and while you were talking, what was on the road? You go, I didn't see it. And I go, oh, so the driving was automatic. I go, yeah, once you know how to drive and the program does it, the better driving experience you have and learning, the better driver you become. It's automatic. So the subconscious is a seat of habits. Of course, you can learn a bad habit, and then that's in there just as much as learning how to walk. Learning how to walk you got before you were 2. You can use the same damn program till you're over 100 years old. That's really good. But if you get a negative program in there, that could also last nearly 100 years as well. So I say, well, where do you get these habits from? I go, well, instincts and experiences. There's some habits that are instinctual. A ball flies toward your face, you will automatically blink without even learning how to have done that. It's instinctive, okay? But learning how to walk, oh, that was an experience. Yeah, I can learn that. And now that becomes a program. And the problem really in our lives comes from this, is that we can acquire programs not by direct experience, but by observing other people, your mother, your father, your siblings, your community, observing them, watching and downloading their behavior as programs becomes a program that is built into the subconscious. And I go, why is this a problem? I go, well, up to 70% of the programs that we all carry are disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting beliefs. And I go, significance is this, is that, oh my God, where do we get these programs? I say, from other people, because the first 7 years of your life is downloading these programs. I said, why should I download the programs? I said, the mind is a computer. It's an information processor. It's one of the universe's, as we know, best computers. I say, well, it's just like a laptop. And I go, why? Well, I could go to the store and buy a laptop and I could take it home. And I go, great. And I say, okay, let's push the start button. And we start it and boom, it boots up. And I go, okay, the screen's on, we're ready to go. And I say, well, let's do something. Let's write a story. Let's make a spreadsheet, or let's draw some pictures. I go, I can't do it. I say, why not? Oh, I just bought this brand new computer. Why can't I do it? And the answer is, before you can do something with a computer, you have to put programs in it. And I say, oh, so in the hard drive, the memory, we download programs. And these programs are the things that we can now use to create whatever we want. So I say, but the keyboard, guess what? That's where you put the data into the computer. And I go, well, you select the data. I say, where's that come from? I go, well, that's basically the keyboard is creativity, because you're the one that's putting in your vision into the keys. And I say, well, the hard drive is the equivalent of subconscious mind, programs. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. Push the button, play the program, repeat, repeat, repeat. But in contrast, it is the conscious mind that is typing on the keyboard. And when the conscious mind types on the keyboard, it can put into that program wishes, desires, and aspirations. Okay. So that's the great use of the conscious mind and the story of how consciousness manifests our world. Now, the interesting part about this is their programs. I say, when did they start? And I said, they started even before you were born. A fetus is like a bunch of cells growing in a petri dish called a placenta. I go, yeah, there's culture medium in there. I go, what's the culture medium? I say, mother's blood. I go, yeah, that's nourishment for the fetus. And I go, nutrition and cellular signals. I go, oh. I say, why is that relevant? Well, the mother's wishes and desires and experiences, remember, are translated into complementary chemistry. If she's afraid, then the chemistry is fear is going into the baby. If she's happy and satisfied, the chemistry of love goes into the baby. I go, ooh, right away. The targets are profoundly different and the consequences are different. A child who grows up with a mother who lives in fear is turned into a street fighter because the fear chemistry activates the arms and legs and the hindbrain to what? Escape fear, okay? But love enhances the vitality of the whole system. And I said, yeah, different chemistry. I say, so programming began before you were born. I go, yeah, here's a picture of a sonogram and an argument between the parents. It's in Italian, but an argument is the same no matter what language it is. Now watch a sonogram, you can watch the fetus. And I go, as the fetus is in this computer, you can see the picture and then we'll do it one more time. Watch the fetus. Watch the fetus jump. Each time there's a scare to the mother. Watch. The point is very clear this. The responses of a mother, if repeated over time, become habits, and habits become programs. So a child growing in a woman who is in love and healthy and happy and supported has a completely different blood combination than a child growing in a placenta being fed by a mother who is living in fear, threat, or just doubt about the future in some way. But that's only the beginning of programming. Programming again continues into the first 12 years of your life in a different way, because what happens is the brain is developing a higher vibration, which means higher capabilities. It didn't all show up. The infant doesn't have the complete range of vibrations in the brain as an adult has. And I say vibration, I say, yeah, put wires on a person's head. It's called electroencephalograph, EEG. And you could read brain function. I go, yeah, for the first 2 years of a child's life, the predominant brain function is delta, which is the lowest vibration. It's actually sleep or unconscious. And that's the child in the first year or so of its life spends almost all of its time sleeping. So that's predominant activity. But between ages 2 and 7, the brain ramps up to a higher vibration called theta. And theta is imagination. That's how kids have like a tea party and they pour nothing into the cup. They drink the nothing and exclaim how wonderful the tea was. I go, imagination, that's theta. But by age 7, it ramps up to a higher vibration called alpha, and that's self-consciousness, where the child sees that they're an individual separate from all the other individuals in the world. They are a unique personal self. And then by 12, the vibrations of the brain ramp up even higher to beta, which is active, focus, like schoolroom consciousness. So there's a sequence of development. But what's most important in the sequence is this: the first 7 years of a child's life, that child is not in consciousness. It's in lower state of consciousness and brain activity. And it's primarily in theta. And theta is hypnosis. So whatever a child in the first 7 years is observing, it's not just observing it, but it's downloading it as a program. And this is important for what? Enculturation. How many rules must you learn to be a member of a family and a member of a community? You got to learn all the rules. I go, thousands and thousands. I go, an infant. How's an infant going to learn? You're going to give it a book? No. An infant learns by observing. It just records the behavior of the mother, the father, the siblings, and community, and records for what? The first 7 years. I go, where are these recordings going? Subconscious. I go, oh, so they're built-in programs like read, write, draw. Yeah, they're different programs, and they came in. And I go, and what else is happening? I said, well, self-identity is also involved. And I say, why? Because who does a child think they are, especially after they get self-consciousness? I go, they're told by parents and teachers and community, oh, you're the smartest and best and healthiest and you can do anything. Or most of us got the other kind. Who do you think you are? You don't deserve this. You're not that good. And you start to hear those different programs. I go, whichever one was the one you were hearing is the one that was downloaded. Most of us got the negative programming. It's being criticized. Parents' effort to try to make us do better, thinking that we would understand their criticism. A child under 7 is not conscious, it's just recording. So if a child is told you're not good enough, the parent was just trying to encourage them to do better, but the child records what? I'm not good enough. And now this is a permanent recording in this subconscious mind until it is changed. So I go, oh, wow, the programming has occurred. Where do we get our behavior from? Basic programs, observing other people. We can get it from ourselves, okay? And then they say, yeah, but if I use the conscious creative mind, I could have what I want. And I go, yeah, but 95% of our life is coming from the subconscious mind, the secret mind, how your unconscious really shapes your decisions. According to cognitive neuroscientists, we are conscious of only about 5% of our cognitive activity. So most of our decisions and our actions, emotions are coming from where? If only 5% is coming from the conscious mind, where's 95% of our life coming from? The subconscious programs. I go, yeah, what about that? I said, those are other people's programs you download. That's not what you wanted. Your wanted is a conscious mind. But when you are thinking, the conscious mind lets go of the control and the subconscious is autopilot. And the consequence is that 95% of the day, our conscious mind is preoccupied in thought. And as a result, 95% of the day, the behavior you express is not you, but the behavior you downloaded from others. And up to 70% of that could be dysfunctional data and programming. And all of a sudden, we start to see that our lives are not really controlled by our wishes and desires. They're manifesting the expressions of the program. And the thing is, you don't see this. So the story I've told for 30 years is simply this. You have a friend, you know your friend's behavior, and you know your friend's parent. You could see that your friend has sometimes the same behavior as their parent. So you want to tell your friend, you can't wait. You go, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. I say, back away from Bill. The moment you say that, Bill's going to say, how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. I go, ha, everyone is aware of this. Most people are laughing because they're very familiar with it. I say, this is the most profound story in the whole world. I go, why? Because where does Bill getting his behavior from? His mind. I say, yeah, but is subconscious or conscious? I go, well, 95% of the day it's coming from the subconscious, which is the program. Why? Because his mind is preoccupied 95% of the day with thinking. I say, so why is it relevant? Because thinking is inside. So the conscious mind, when you're having a thought, is not looking out. When you're having a thought, it's looking in. That's where the answers are, inside. So if you're driving the car and you're not looking out the window anymore and the car is going, then who the heck is driving the car? I go, subconscious autopilot steps in, drives better than the conscious mind. I said, so why is this relevant? Only 5% of the day are you using the conscious mind to create what you want. 95% of the day is unfolding from programs in the subconscious, most of which are negative. The consequence is that we find our lives in struggle. And like Bill, you don't see what you're saying. None of us see what we're saying. We're all Bill. Our programs are playing 95% of the day while our conscious mind's on a hike into the mind, not paying attention. So I go, then your life is not coming from wishes and desires. Your life is coming from where? Subconscious programs. I go, oh my God, what does this mean? That our behavior is really dependent on the subconscious. So conscious mind, 5% of the day, subconscious, 95% of the day. Conscious mind was wishes and desires. And I go, yeah, but guess what? 95% of the day, that's not even playing. 95% of the day, you are downloading and playing the behavior that you got from your growing up period. And if it's negative, guess what? You're expressing negative behavior, but you're the one that can't see it. Just like Bill. Bill can't see his negative behavior. Why? Because he's playing the program when his conscious mind's not paying attention. So the conscious mind doesn't see the program. It just sees the result of the program. And if I went in the morning to create the most wonderful life and come home at the end of the day, it all fell apart, then I go, Well, I wanted it to be successful and it didn't happen. So the universe is against me. I'm a victim. I go, no, it was your subconscious mind 95% of the day that manifests this program. And that's where the big issues come from. And it's so interesting because the idea that your life is a representation of your subconscious program is not new. For 400 years, the Jesuits have told us that our fundamental behaviors are acquired. And I go, what do you mean? I go, we've been programmed. They told people for 400 years, the Jesuits would say, give me a child for the first 7 years and I'll give you the man. Let's break that down. It is the first 7 years where you're downloading programs by observing. And then the rest of your life up to a man and beyond is 95% coming from programs. So all of a sudden they knew that the first 7 years determines the character of your life. We've all been programmed. In fact, interesting point, the movie The Matrix, you look at it as science fiction. I go, no, it's not science fiction. It's a documentary. All of us have been programmed. So your life is an expression of your programs. You might say to me, so what are my programs? And then I go very simply this, look at your life. The things that you like that come into your life come in because you have programs to acknowledge and support those behaviors. But the things that you wish for and you desire and you want in your life and you have to struggle, work hard, sweat over, put a lot of effort into making it happen, why are you working so hard? And the answer is simple. Inevitably, what that means is what? Your programs don't support that. Your struggle is not because of the outside, it's because 95% of the day, the invisible behavior you're playing is sabotaging you and you don't even see it, just like Bill. I go, so we've all been programmed. And interesting, in the movie The Matrix, there's a place where you can take one of two pills. A blue pill, you take this and you wake up and you're in the program. Life is always the way it was. Or you can take the red pill and get out of the program. I say, the red pill, what would happen if you take it? And I go, most of you have already taken it. And it profoundly changed your life. I say, what's the red pill? And the answer is, the red pill, that's the one you take when you fall in love. When you fall in love, you have the honeymoon effect. And I go, well, what about that? And I go, well, number one, it's a state of exuberant health. Yeah, why? The chemistry of love is nourishing your culture medium to the best and highest quality. Number two, you have so much abundant life energy. I always joke, I say, some people made love for days without stopping for sleep. There was so much energy. And more importantly, it's an experience manifesting heaven on earth. And I go, why is this relevant? And the answer why it's relevant is very clear. The answer why it's relevant is that was not an accident. That was a manifestation. You manifested and created the joy, the happiness, every experience. The food was better, the music was better, even the job was better. Everything got so much better. And you were in the honeymoon. I go, what the hell is the honeymoon? And the answer was this, the red pill. Because when you took the red pill, the falling in love, when you fell in love, guess what? You kept your mind present. You stayed mindful. Your conscious mind was not thinking. Why? Well, what you've been looking for your whole life is in front of your face. It's obviously not the time to think. It's time to be present, time to be mindful. I go, well, what happens when you're mindful? You're not defaulting to the programs. You are now running strictly from wishes and desires and aspirations. And when two people fall in love, their co-creativity is a manifestation of heaven on earth. And I go, so why is that relevant? I go, heaven on earth was always here. The problem is we've been defaulting to the subconscious programs, most of which are negative, for 95% of the day. When you stop defaulting, then the creative nature of consciousness, creating your life experiences and your health, your vitality, and all the beautiful things, heaven on earth. Just as a physicist said, consciousness is creating this life experience that you have. But we have to use that consciousness, and we have to stop defaulting to the subconscious. Staying mindful is good. Taking power over your mind is really important. And the significance of yoga, of course, is the exercise that is linking that mind-body duality and connecting it together. The power of yoga gives you the power over the mind to create and stay in a honeymoon effect for your whole life. And if you have problems with that, guess what? You can still rewrite the programs. So it's not a problem. You want to understand how to rewrite the programs. There's excuse me, information on my website, brucelipton.com. And there's information how to rewrite those programs because you can. And I say, so what's the conclusion? You are creating this life, the inner experience through epigenetics, the outer experience through the influence of consciousness in the realm of energy, quantum physics. So there's a biology and a quantum physics element to your creation. And I go, why is this relevant? Because when you become the master of this, then heaven on earth, honeymoon effect, is not a short-lived experience. It's for every day for the rest of your life. And you go, but wait, Bruce, how come the honeymoon for most of us is so short? I go, how did you have the honeymoon? You stayed mindful. You stopped thinking. And I go, so what's that? And I go, well, you stopped playing any negative programs you had because now the behavior you're expressing is the behavior you wish to have. But the moment you have to think, you got a job, you got chores to do, you have responsibilities, you start thinking. I said, then what happens? Oh, now the program that's coming out is not you. It's now coming from your downloaded programs from your family and your community. And that's where the negative ones are. And all of a sudden I go, now you're Bill, you're playing your dad's or your mom's program, and you're the one that can't see it. And then guess what? Your partner will see it. And that's when all of a sudden that beautiful honeymoon, which was conscious mind and co-creativity, is now actually subconscious mind versus subconscious mind, which is based on all the programs, most of which are not very positive, which then leads to what? Love, separation. But you have a chance. You can rewrite those programs that are separating you. And as a result, you can have a honeymoon experience every day of your life for as long as you live. And I hope you do, because when you're celebrating a honeymoon experience, the energy of that radiates to everyone around. And the more of us that are in a honeymoon experience, the more peace and harmony that the planet's going to experience. And to emphasize and facilitate this, yoga is the exercise of empowering yourself to empower your mind. I wish you well. I wish you joy. I wish you a honeymoon experience, because when you're having a honeymoon experience, I'm going to get the vibes and have one with you. So enjoy the conference.